Good morning to you. It is Thursday, November 29th, and this is Fox and Friends First, happening right now at 4 a.m. here on the East Coast. A Fox News alert for you. Listen to this. A violent MS-13 gang member found embedded in the caravan, and that's not all. Well, we just learned about the serious health risk being carried by the thousands of migrants waiting to cross the border. We are live in Tijuana. And the tables could be turning on Robert Mueller after one of his latest targets lawyers up the accusations against the special counsel and the new questions of credibility after his team's latest leak.
You're on the list finally, and then about 2 years into that, it's like, I'm never going to get a call. All of this was God, 100%.
And just call it divine intervention. Meet the man thanking God for making a split-second decision that saved his life. Fox and Friends First starts right now. From the streets of New York City for you this morning. The lights came on a couple of really big trees we're going to show you in just a moment overnight. Good morning to you. You're watching Fox and Friends First on this Thursday morning. I'm Heather Childers. Thank you for starting your day with us, as always. Well, straight to that Fox News alert. Border agents arrest an MS-13 gang member traveling with a migrant caravan. This, as Fox News exclusively learns of some serious health risk that some of those migrants could bring into the U.S. Griff Jenkins is live for us in Tijuana, Mexico, with more. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, Heather. His name is Jose Villalobos Jobel, a 29-year-old Honduran man traveling with the 2,000 of the 8,000 migrants in the caravan in Mexicali. He crossed at the Calexico port of entry when authorities took him in custody, and he is a self-admitted member of the MS-13 dangerous gang. The Customs and Border Protection issuing this statement saying Villalobos confirmed his story of his gang involvement and intent on entering the United States illegally, but as you mentioned, that is certainly not the only concern. Serious health risks are traveling in this caravan. We spoke with the spokesperson for Tijuana's health department, who gave us these numbers that they have treated 2,267 migrants, over 60% with respiratory infections, 3 confirmed cases of tuberculosis, 4 cases of HIV/AIDS, 101 cases of lice, 4 cases of chickenpox, and hepatitis is now a real concern because of the unsanitary conditions. You have over 6,000 people crammed in this space intended for 1,000 here just behind me. We spoke with one of those migrants, Marco Munoz from Honduras, who's seeking asylum, and he says that he feels like he was lied to from the organizers from the beginning, and he's worried we're reaching a breaking point. Listen.
They lied to us from the beginning, so most of these people are disappointed, and getting frustrated at the time. So, as you can see, every day that passes, it's more and more people that are coming. So it's going to be a point break where they're just going to say, let's rush in there,
Finally, Heather, it's been raining at times heavily on and off here. It is wet, it is cold, and it is going to take a toll even further on this caravan as we continue to monitor it. Heather?
Yeah, wet, cold, and clearly dangerous. Griff Jenkins, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Well, in other news, another story that we've been following for you, we now can tell you the names of the 3 U.S. Special Ops troops killed on the deadliest day in Afghanistan this year. Army Captain Andrew Ross, Army Sergeant First Class Eric Emmons, and Air Force Staff Sergeant Dylan Elchin died after their vehicle hit an explosive. 3 other American soldiers and a contractor, they were also injured near Kabul. 12 American heroes have died in Afghanistan this year. Well, President Trump will head to Argentina today for the annual G20 summit. He is expected to meet with several world leaders, including Russian President Vladimir Putin. According to the Kremlin, they will discuss anti-terrorism efforts, Syria, and North Korea denuclearization. President Trump will also hold talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping over rising trade tensions, and we will cover all of it for you, for sure. Well, a key witness in the Russia probe now intending to file a criminal complaint against Robert Mueller, just as a top Democrat demands President Trump sit down with a special counsel. Todd Piper joins us now live with the latest developments as we get a look at the president's written answers to Mueller. Good morning, Todd.
Good morning to you, Heather. In the latest shocking twist in the Russia probe, conservative author Jerome Corsi with a bombshell that he plans to go after Robert Mueller and his team in the courts.
What the special prosecutor is asking me to do is accept a fraudulent plea, which I am going to have my attorneys file criminal charges on with the Department of Justice. My experience made it clear to me that the political criminals are running the Department of Justice and Mueller's prosecution. They misbehaved, and they accused me of being a liar and a fabricator.
Corsi adding via tweet, quote, "I have retained attorney Larry Klayman to assist David Gray in my defense. In a memo to my attorneys, I have instructed Klayman and Gray to file with acting AG Whitaker a criminal complaint against Mueller's special counsel and the DOJ for prosecutorial misconduct in my case." Yet despite this, Democrat Adam Schiff calling for President Trump to sit down for an in-person interview with Mueller, saying the president's written answers weren't enough.
There really needs to be a live interview with the president because you need to be able to ask follow-up questions in real time.
All this coming as leaks of those written answers are coming out, specifically two key points. One, President Trump telling Mueller that Roger Stone did not tell him about the Clinton WikiLeaks documents. And two, that Trump wasn't told about that 2016 Trump Tower meeting with a Russian lawyer claiming to have dirt on Hillary Clinton. As you might imagine, the president had something to say about all this, tweeting, "While the disgusting fake news is doing everything within their power not to report it that way, at least three major players are intimating that the angry Mueller gang of Dems is viciously telling witnesses to lie about facts and they will get relief. This is our Joseph McCarthy era." So what about Paul Manafort, you ask? Well, there are reports that Manafort reportedly gave untruthful statements to Mueller about his relationship with a Ukrainian associate, leading to the end of his plea deal, also leading to the president saying a pardon for his embattled former campaign manager is, quote, not off the table. That's a lot to pack into 2 minutes, Heather.
It sure is, but you covered it all for us, and we're going to talk more about it coming up.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Todd.
Right.
Well, Stormy Daniels calling out her attorney, Michael Avenatti. She claims that he filed a defamation lawsuit against President Trump without her permission. And Daniels also telling the Daily Beast that he started a second crowdfunding site for her legal expenses without telling her. Avenatti says that she started the new campaign to cover legal fees because most of the money so far has gone to her security. Daniels has not decided if Avenatti will still represent her. Well, Nancy Pelosi is one step closer to becoming House Speaker. Democrats voted behind closed doors yesterday to nominate her for the job. The final tally, 203 to 32. Some of those Democrats opposed her nomination in recent weeks, saying that they want fresh leadership. Now, Pelosi will need 218 votes when the entire House meets. That will be in January to officially regain the title. And the Senate is set to hold a tense confirmation vote on one of President Trump's judicial nominees today. Thomas Farr is facing some stiff resistance from Senate Democrats who claim that he's hostile to union voter rights, amongst some other things. Meanwhile, the Senate Judiciary Committee canceled votes on nearly 24 other nominees. All of this is going on amid outgoing Republican Senator Jeff Flake's pledge to oppose all court picks until he gets a vote on a bill to protect special counsel Mueller. More on that coming up. But in the meantime, how about this? It is beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
3, 2, 1.
Beautiful. The Rockefeller Center Christmas tree all lit up and topped with a 9-foot Swarovski star made of 3 million crystals. And then in Washington, the president and the first lady taking part in the 96th annual National Christmas Tree lighting. The 28-foot blue spruce is decorated with ornaments from every state and territory. So I guess it is officially Christmas time. Well, the time now, though, is about 9 minutes after the top of the hour, and Republicans blocking another bill to protect special counsel Robert Mueller as President Trump lashes out against the Russia probe. So what happens next on Capitol Hill? We'll talk about it up next.
We cannot convert an office like this one without creating a de facto fourth branch of government, fundamentally undermining the principle of separation of powers that is so core to our liberty. And on that basis, Madam President, I object.
A second attempt by some of President Trump's top critics to protect Robert Mueller's probe is shot down yet again after Republican Mike Lee takes the Senate floor, objecting to the bill's unconstitutionality. Here now to react is the former Chief of Staff for Senator Lee, Boyd Matheson. Thank you very much for joining us so early this morning. We appreciate it.
You bet.
So the first time around, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell blocked this. This time, your former boss did so. What do you think about it?
So, you know, it is one of those procedural things on the floor of the Senate. They were trying to pass this bill by what is known as unanimous consent. In other words, with nobody in the room, it just passes because no one's there to object. It only takes one senator to object on these kinds of resolutions. So I'm not surprised by that. As you heard from Senator Lee himself, this is really one of those where in so many areas, Congress continues to abdicate its power and authority to the executive branch and to the courts. And this is one area where it's almost a solution in search of a problem. There's been no evidence that shows that the Mueller investigation has been watered down, that it's been inhibited, or that it's going to be stopped before it concludes. And so this is one of those where I think the senator is simply trying to make sure we preserve and do not create in the process a fourth branch of government.
And I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, you know, talking about it not happening so far, Sarah Sanders said, you know, the president's had ample opportunity to do this. He has not done it so far. So his, you know, let his actions speak for what he's said over and over he's not going to do. But this de facto fourth branch of government, explain that a little bit more.
So what this would, in essence, do, we have to remember that after the advice and consent that the Senate is supposed to do with the Department of Justice, the Department of Justice then reports to the president. And so setting it up as this quasi-fourth branch where it's kind of independent of everything else is just bad precedent. And this is also one of those where I think it represents really the worst of what happens here in Washington, and that is we create this fake fight and then we present this false choice. I haven't seen any evidence anywhere that shows that the president is ready to shut this thing down or is in the middle of it trying to stop things from happening. And so I think everyone needs to exhale just a little bit, let this play out. I think Mr. Mueller is going to get his work done. He's going to issue his report, and then everybody should step forward and move on.
Well, a lot of those who are pushing for this move point to some of President Trump's tweets, and lately there's been a lot of them. Here's one that he sent out yesterday saying that while the disgusting fake news is doing everything within their power not to report it that way, at least three major players are intimating that the angry Mueller gang of Dems is viciously telling witnesses to lie about facts and they will get relief. This is our Joseph McCarthy era. And we just had Todd Pyro in here earlier reporting about it, saying that, you know, the very latest Jerome Corsi is filing a criminal complaint saying just that they're trying to force him to lie.
So I think what we have to do, though, is we have to separate the rhetoric from the policy and the procedures. And it's very easy to conflate all of those and lump them into one big thing. But again, there's nothing that shows that anything has changed, nor has there been any evidence come out in terms of any kind of collusion or any of the other things that Mr. Mueller is supposed to be investigating anyway. And so everyone has to just exhale a little bit, step back. This is not a national crisis moment because I think Mr. Mueller is going to do his job the way he's supposed to. It's the reason he has the job. And I don't think any tweet from the president is going to impact how he does that job. And again, everyone just needs to exhale just a little bit and step forward. There's a lot of really pressing issues, and we shouldn't be distracted by one that isn't really there. Yeah, I'm summarizing here, but Mitch McConnell said something the other day. He said, you know, our southern border needs protection. I don't think that Bob Mueller needs protection. Bob, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Appreciate it. Thanks, Heather. Well, the time now is about 17 minutes after the top of the hour, and Google accused of illegally tracking millions of users worldwide. Cybersecurity expert Lisa Garber here to break down what this means for you and your privacy, and she is here live.
Well, he's a familiar name to you. Jesse Ventura, remember him? He's considering a 2020 White House run, and he's already taking shots at President Trump, the pro wrestler who later became governor of Minnesota, telling TMZ, quote, "If I do it, Trump will not have a chance. He knows he can never out-talk a wrestler, and he knows I'm the greatest talker wrestling's ever had." The 67-year-old served one term as Minnesota governor. He also considered running for president back in 2016. So we'll see. And the end may be near for Rocky. Coming off the release of Creed 2, actor Sylvester Stallone posting in part on Instagram, quote, though it breaks my heart, sadly all things must pass and end. Rocky will never die because he lives on in you. As Stallone first started portraying Rocky Balboa way back in 1976, but he's still running strong. Well, let's talk about Google. Google is now facing worldwide scrutiny over the way it tracks its users after 7 European watchdog agencies filed some complaints accusing the tech giant of using deceptive and manipulative techniques against its millions of users. So what comes next for the company, and what rights do you have? Here to weigh in is attorney and data cybersecurity expert Lisa Garber. We always love having you with us.
Great to see you,
Thank
Heather.
you. So what's the primary complaint here? What's going on?
The primary complaint, and this is not just in the EU, it's in the U.S. as well, and there's an action pending in California because the state law is very strong there. But basically, Google is being very deceptive in how it tracks users' data and how users can control what Google is actually tracking, keeping, and how they're using and selling that data.
So how is it that they're being deceptive?
They're deceptive in that there are so many layers where this data resides and where you actually would have to toggle off and make that decision. And it's also very difficult to actually find these layers. So you might go to, on an iPhone, the location privacy setting. On an Android, it's somewhere else. But then there are applications that are connected to Google. What happens if you're logged into your Gmail account and you're in a web browser? There are all these different places to look, and it's nearly impossible to turn all of it off.
Right, making it incredibly complicated. We have a couple of statements here. This is from the Norwegian Consumer Council. Their statement: Google is processing incredibly detailed and extensive personal data without proper legal grounds, and the data has been acquired through manipulation techniques, as you were just saying. But then we have Google and their statement on location tracking. Location history is turned off by default, and you can edit, delete, or pause it at any time. If you pause it, we make clear that depending on your individual phone and app settings, we might still collect and use location data to improve your Google experience. So what's the point of pausing it to begin with?
Exactly. And I don't want to gloss over the fact that when you have it turned on, yes, it's easier to view the traffic in your normal route, because when you are looking at all the places this location data is used, think about your daily routine. So it's tracking your walk to work, your commute, all of these things. It can really put together a comprehensive profile on who you are as a person, what you enjoy doing, what your daily routine looks like. So a piece of it is helpful to your user experience, but at the same time, where's the privacy control? And that's what the EU is concerned about.
So do users have a case against Google here?
They definitely have a case, and Google should be concerned because in the EU especially, this general data protection regulation, which was released in May of this year, there's a penalty of up to 4% of Google's annual revenue if they've broken this privacy promise they've made with EU citizens and residents. In the US, our privacy laws aren't as strong, but in California, their regulations definitely have teeth, and there's a question right now about iPhone and Android users with their Google privacy settings.
So what steps should a user take if they're concerned about it?
Users have to become extremely aware of the controls that they have in their Google account. So you have to realize what of your social media accounts, your shopping accounts, everything that's connected to your Google profile itself. Then become familiar with your phone and your laptop. Take a look at the controls, toggle on and off, see what it looks like, maybe take a review of the privacy policy, even though they're extremely complicated, but just become aware of how ingrained this data is in your everyday life.
And you really do have to look at all of the individual apps for sure.
It's so important because Google is so prevalent. It's everywhere.
It is. All right. Thank you so much. Great to have you with us.
Great to see you.
Good information. Well, the time now is about 25 minutes after the top of the hour. President Trump leaving for the G20 summit in just hours from now as a sit down with Vladimir Putin remains up in the air. Why former CIA station chief in Moscow, Dan Hoffman, says that the president needs to send a big public message to the Russian president.
bunch of Grinches, and they're always going to be a Grinch. You can never make them happy.
And Christmas controversy, why one town is forcing a homeowner to pay thousands of dollars just for his holiday display.
So is Senator Cotton right? Will this bill supported by the president allow sex offenders and violent felons to get out of jail early? What's true? What's fact? What's fiction? Let's ask Republican Senator from South Carolina, Tim Scott, who is co-sponsoring the bill. Senator, great to have you with us.
Thank you. It's good to be here with you.
Okay, so you know how your fellow GOP Senator Tom Cotton feels about this. I know that you think there are a lot of positives. What about these potential negatives that he cited?
At the end of the day, we have an expanding list of excluded categories of folks who cannot be eligible for this package. We've added every classification that Tom brings up. We'll add, and we'll continue to add some more if necessary. The reality of it is that we have a chance to reduce recidivism. What that means is we're increasing public safety. Today, after 5 years, 77% of the inmates are back in jail. We have proven programs that reduces that number. The reason why President Trump, who is not soft on crime whatsoever, supports this legislation is because he understands that by reducing recidivism, we can see safer communities. South Carolina is a classic example of that. We've closed 7 state prisons. Our estimated population of 30,000 prisoners down to 21,000. Why? Because we've reduced recidivism by having programs designed to force or to encourage inmates to participate in that actually helps us reduce their recidivism by increasing their readiness for the real world, by giving them the job skills, GED programs, and other programs that we have been able to prove reduces the likelihood of reoffending.
So not just a vicious cycle. Now, DOJ did tell Politico, an analyst said to them that the measure doesn't contain any exclusions for people convicted of the crimes that Senator Cotton refers to, and that all offenders would be eligible to receive more good time credits as a result of the bill. So is it your representation that the bill is still a work in progress, that some exclusions will be added?
Absolutely. We were working on it today. What we had was a base bill that we were continuing to add excluded classes. The classes that Tom asked DOJ to take a look at already are eligible for good time credits. So the question was, does the bill provide enhanced good time credits? And the answer is it does provide more certainty and more flexibility for the BOP to decide who gets what. But we put those 4 classes that Tom Cotton had questions about on the excluded list.
Well, that's why people have discussions and raise their concerns.
This has been a good process.
So you can have some interaction on that. Okay, I want to ask you as well about Thomas Farr, who is a judicial nominee. You voted today procedurally just to move him forward, not on the merits of whether or not he should be a federal judge. You know that there are plenty of objections to him.
Absolutely.
The NAACP says he needs to withdraw his nomination. He's the architect of the worst voter suppression law in the country. After you voted to move him forward today, at least to the next consideration level, News One had this. Their headline said, Senate's only black Republican, Tim Scott, sells out in vote on Trump's racist judge nominee. Jennifer Rubin, who is a self-described conservative blogger over the Washington Post, said, what a fraud he is on civil rights, referring to you.
Yeah, hogwash. If I took the time to respond to every negative criticism that I get from the African-American community, whether the NAACP, NAN, or some other group, then I would spend all my time only responding to the criticism. The fact of the matter is, if there's a civil rights issue, we've just talked about it. It's having prison reform actually see the light of day and get passed. It's the work that I've done on the Opportunity Zone legislation, which brings more money back into the poor communities that I grew up in a single-parent household. So it's talking about ways to improve education, which I'm working on, which I think is one of the greatest civil rights issues of our generation. We're looking for ways to make sure that every single zip code has quality educational options for parents. The fact of the matter is that we can agree to disagree on a specific nominee. I don't remember all those folks coming out and saying, good job, when I shot down an administration appointment to the courts just about 2 or 3 months ago. So I'm going to take my hits, and frankly, that comes with the territory. At the end of the day, my goal is to do the right thing. One of the reasons why I called and spoke to the author of the DOJ memo from 28 years ago was to understand and appreciate what role Tom Farr played in the Helms campaign. If he was the architect of that nasty racist campaign, I would have been a no without any question. What I found so far from appointees of the Obama administration to my conversations with the author of the memo is that he was, in fact, not the architect of the campaign, and that the character witnesses from the Obama administration coming forward on behalf of Tom Farr have been pretty strong. But I am continuing my research because the thing I hold myself accountable for is doing the right thing, not the politically acceptable, not the politically expedient, but the right thing based on the evidence. And so far, the evidence is pointing me towards the vote that I took today, and I will continue this journey through the night and into tomorrow and make the best decision I can and sleep with a good conscience.
All right. Well, you have proven that before on difficult votes where maybe the White House or your party wanted you and you voted your conscience
Absolutely.
as a no. So we'll watch tomorrow. The vote is at noon. In the meantime, thanks very much for stopping in.
Thank
and we'll
you.
follow the criminal justice bill as well.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Thanks, Senator.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, breaking tonight, DHS says a member of the extremely violent MS-13 street gang admits he hid in the migrant caravan so he could reach the U.S. border. That story's coming up. U.S. officials confirming tonight an active member of the deadly MS-13 street gang has been arrested with the migrant caravan just east of the port of entry in Calexico. Jose Villalobos Jobel of Honduras apparently planned to apply for asylum and cross into the U.S. at the border. Once he was detained on Saturday, DHS says he admitted to being a part of MS-13 and traveling with the caravan as a way to get into the U.S. He'll reportedly be returned to Honduras. Well, adult film actress Stormy Daniels says her attorney, Michael Avenatti, sued President Trump for defamation on her behalf without her permission. Daniels tells the Daily Beast Avenatti started a fundraising website to raise money for her legal expenses without telling her. She also says he refuses to tell her how the money is being spent. Daniels says she's not decided whether to keep Avenatti as her lawyer. Well, Justice Brett Kavanaugh back in the headlines today for his return to his other favorite role in life, Coach K of his daughter's basketball team. But that's not sitting well with some of his critics on the left. Correspondent Trace Gallagher is looking into the details. Hello, Trace.
Hi, Shannon. An article in the Washington Post itself was very run-of-the-mill. It simply stated that Brett Kavanaugh, the Supreme Court justice, is back coaching his daughter's basketball team. It does mention in the article the sexual assault allegations against him, but mostly in the context of Kavanaugh lamenting the possibility that the uncorroborated smears could prevent him from coaching. Here's what Kavanaugh said at the time. Watch.
I love coaching more than anything I've ever done in my whole life. But thanks to what some of you on this side of the committee have unleashed, I may never be able to coach again.
So the uproar isn't about the article itself, it's about where the Washington Post placed the article, which is under its public safety tag, along with an incident at Walter Reed Medical Center not being an active shooter and a child who was hit by a bus. A father coaching his daughter appears to be out of place, and conservatives made their displeasure known with comments like, quote, the gutter journalism that still surrounds reports about Brett Kavanaugh make me want to tear my hair out, and quoting, well, it's official now, the Inquirer, The Onion have more credible headlines and articles than the WAPO and the New York Times. The Washington Post is defending itself, saying that stories written by the author, legal affairs reporter Ann E. Marimow, automatically default to the public safety category. The Post goes on to say this obviously is one that should not have been there. And in fairness, other stories written by the author, including one about adoption and one about Robert Mueller, also ended up under public safety. But this is also the paper that ran headlines during the confirmation hearings like these, quote, we were Brett Kavanaugh's drinking buddies. We don't think he should be confirmed, end quote. Brett Kavanaugh's anger may be backfiring. So even if the story was simply misplaced, you can see why conservatives might be a bit skeptical. And by the way, we should mention Shannon Kavanaugh's team lost in the final round of that tournament.
All right.
Shannon.
Well, he's going to be there coaching him on, it appears. Either way, Trace, thank you very much.
Sure.
Well, First Lady Melania Trump is speaking out after days of criticism over her White House Christmas decor. Tonight, President Trump leading a countdown for the lighting of the national Christmas tree tonight. First Lady Melania Trump hit the switch to illuminate the decked-out spruce in President's Park that is just south of the White House. A number of country stars came to perform along with Pershing Zone, the U.S. Army Band, and it is freezing in D.C. tonight. Looks beautiful. All right, First Lady Melania Trump is speaking out after days of criticism over her Christmas decorations. Correspondent Ellison Barber has more from the First Lady.
For the second time since moving into the White House, First Lady Melania Trump unveiled Christmas decorations. And for the second time, the decorations were mocked and turned into internet memes, comparing the decorations to everything from The Handmaid's Tale to Stanley Kubrick's classic horror film The Shining to a car wash. There were some write-ups pointing out the Twitter backlash. Media outlets like USA Today, Time, and HuffPost. Today, the First Lady responded during an event at Liberty University.
They would like to portray different stories and focus on different unimportant stuff, really. And I'm here to shine the light on important stuff and talk about the things that I can help.
Ms. Trump spoke about the decorations after she was asked about those criticisms.
Everybody has a different taste. I think they look fantastic.
But she traveled to Virginia to speak about something else.
The addiction can begin with something as innocent as injury. It could be a sports injury or from some kind of an accident.
Opioid abuse is one of the 3 pillars in the First Lady's Be Best initiative. The other 2 pillars are well-being and social media. The First Lady has come under fire for the initiative, with some saying it's hypocritical. After all, her husband is well known for his tweets and using them to aggressively punch back at critics. When I spoke with the First Lady's office, they said her comments about the decorations speak for themselves, but they also told me they aren't particularly concerned with the criticisms. One of the First Lady's top aides told me the critiques are coming from what she described as left-wing media. She said the decorations are beautiful and they're just excited for the public to take part in a special tradition. Shannon?
All right, Ellison, thank you very much. Now, Melania is not the only Trump woman in the spotlight tonight. First daughter, presidential advisor Ivanka Trump, is defending her use of a private email account, saying it cannot be compared to what happened with then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and her emails in a private server. Time now for tonight's Power Panel to debate both of these big stories. Fox News contributor Leslie Marshall, Fox News political analyst Gianno Caldwell, and White House correspondent for the Daily Caller, Sagar Anjeti. Thank you all for being with us tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, I want to read what Vanity Fair said today, or said this week about these Christmas decorations. The headline was, Melania Trump's White House Christmas has a touch of menace once again. Goes on to say, if the sense of menace blowing through the ornamental branches last year came from what we didn't know about Melania, this year that feeling comes from what we do know. Gianno.
Oh my God, we gotta take her to jail because this is so horrific. First and foremost, these decorations were used to honor military families, and as I've read the reporting, a lot of these military families actually participated in the decorations. I think this is another case of anybody that's close to Trump, whether they are involved in politics at all or not, are targets. And this is another problematic case of that. People have been attacking Melania Trump since she entered the White House, and this is something that I think we should definitely back from and certainly make mention of the hypocrisy here.
Okay, Dan Gaynor of the Media Research Center says this: according to the juvenile style mavens that dominate the lefty media, Melania's Christmas style is somehow spooky or deeply haunted. Compare that to how the Washington Post described Michelle Obama as a, quote, pro in dressing up the place, whose decorations delivered her own steady recognition of military service. Leslie, double standard?
Well, I don't think there's a double standard, Shannon, because there's certainly been enough criticism, and continues to be, of former First Ladies Michelle Obama, Hillary Clinton. Unfortunately and sadly, and I don't agree with it, it seems to come with the territory of being First Lady. If people don't like on the left your husband on the right, or vice versa, they attack the First Lady. I want to go on the record and say I actually like the red Christmas trees. I'm a minimalist. I feel they're a little bit modern and funky. And quite frankly, we really shouldn't be attacking any First Lady for decorating the White House, because it's petty and there are much more important issues to discuss.
I mean, Sagar, listen, there are so many women's magazines out there. Like, I can't even read most of them anymore, because I don't care if it's left or right. Like, I just don't want to read politics if I'm looking for like lip gloss and evening gowns. I mean, but these magazines fawn over the left and just deride the right all the time. I mean, Melania, whether you are left, right, or center, I mean, physically a stunningly beautiful, fashionable woman. And I saw recently a list of the 100 most fashionable in the world. She did not even make the top 100, Sagar.
Yeah, you're right. This is a little bit out of my league here. But in my discussion with some fellow culture correspondents, what they tell me is it is a little baffling that you have a former supermodel as First Lady who hasn't graced the cover or any of these best dressed lists, when Michelle Obama was actually turned into a fashion icon under the Obama administration. Overall, you know, Melania has said in the past that she thinks she's one of the most bullied people in the world, and I broadly tend to agree with that.
I mean, people mocked her for saying that, Saagar.
Yeah, I'm sure. I know that they did, but this is a perfect example. She's trying to shine a light on, you know, on infants who are born addicted to opioids because of the choices of their parents, and we're talking about red Christmas trees. And I think it's a sad time whenever Christmas decorations are becoming part of political discourse, but that's where we are in this country right now.
I want you all to weigh in too as well about the news that Ivanka Trump had used a lot of personal email back and forth discussing things regarding travel and being contacted by White House officials and others. Here's what she said on Good Morning America.
So everything has been preserved, everything's been archived. There just is no equivalency between the two things. My emails have not been deleted, nor was there anything of substance, nothing confidential.
But, Gianno, I'll start with you. I mean, people say, listen, this is something that the president has hammered Hillary Clinton on for years. An unforced error?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I think a lot of us love Ivanka Trump. We think she's poised. I think she's graceful, 100%. Now, these are a couple of things that we got to keep in mind. No, this was not the same as Hillary Clinton. No, there was no classified material that we are aware of that was on these emails. And it was also said that she used this email to transition into the job. So when I hear that, I'm saying, oh, okay, it kind of makes sense. But what I do realize is, generally speaking, when there's a transition taking place, you get a transition government email, which you should utilize to do this government business until you get an official White House email. So knowing what President Trump and candidate Trump did in terms of Hillary Clinton, how he made mention of our emails on a consistent basis, this is certainly something she should have never done, and I'm sure it's something that she won't do any further.
Well, Cheryl Atkinson, an investigative reporter, tweeted this. She says, I'm not equating Ivanka's email to Hillary establishing a private server for all government business, destroying emails after subpoenaed, etc. But for those talking about possible charge against Ivanka, wasn't that matter all settled? Since the Hillary decision did not to prosecute, even if Ivanka or Trump were to go so far as Hillary did and set up a private server, mishandled classified info, destroyed subpoena emails, we've determined that that's not a crime. Or is it only a crime if it's not Hillary? Quickly, Leslie, then Saagar.
I would say that we could ask the same question to say, is it only a crime if it is Hillary? I didn't hear chance, and I don't hear chance of lock her up, although some people may do that on Twitter regarding Ivanka. Look, she works in the White House. Her father is president. She works for the president. She's part of the presidential staff. Approximately 80% of what comes by her desk is classified, and with all the hullabaloo that her father, his campaign administration have made, and those on the right, she should have known better. It was reckless, just like it was when Hillary Clinton did it.
Final word, Saagar.
Yeah, we may not be hearing lock her up, but we are definitely hearing subpoena out of the House Democrats. And unfortunately, this is an unforced error by Ms. Trump, and the House Democrats are going to have a field day. They're going to be subpoenaing these records. They're going to use it for all of its worth, and it's going to be a headache for the White House for a long time to come.
All right, Saagar, Gianno, and Leslie, thank you all very much.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you.
Albie has more from the city of Republic.
Good man. I appreciate what you're doing. In tiny Republic, Washington, Police Chief Loren Culp is a local celebrity after saying he would not enforce the law, or one state law, Initiative 1639, a sweeping gun control measure.
I felt that it was such a blatant disregard for constitutional rights that I felt like I had no choice but to stand up for the people that I serve. The new gun law bars 18 to 20-year-olds from buying semi-automatic rifles and makes it a potential felony if your gun ends up in the wrong hands. It also creates enhanced background checks and mandatory firearms training. Voters across Washington state passed the measure 59 to 41%, but in Ferry County, nearly 3 out of 4 voters opposed it. Mayor Elbert Koontz is considering an ordinance proposed by Chief Culp to make Republic a sanctuary city for gun rights.
Everybody in Republic has a gun. We don't have a giant crime rate because nobody in their right mind is going to come to a house where people have guns and know how to use them.
When Chief Culp announced his sanctuary city proposal, he got a standing ovation. In Seattle, the reaction is very different.
Their job is to enforce the laws that are passed, not necessarily to just the ones that they approve of personally.
The Second Amendment Foundation, along with the NRA, sued to strike down the new state law. Its leader sees poetic justice in gun rights advocates getting into the sanctuary business, up until now reserved for illegal immigrants.
In politics, there's always a pushback. When you try to take people's rights away from them, they stand up and they rebel, and that's what you're seeing in Republic Washington.
The City Council will discuss the gun rights sanctuary city ordinance at its next meeting on Monday and could vote on it before the state law takes effect in January. The state's Attorney General, a Democrat who supports gun control, says he'll review the ordinance if it passes. Shannon?
Dan Springer in Washington, thank you. And by the way, along with the tree lighting in D.C., New York's Rockefeller Center Christmas tree was lit tonight as well. Now, did you ever wonder what happens to the tree after the season? Well, the Rockefeller Center tree is donated to Habitat for Humanity, and that